Finals week. Every single student, when they hear those two words, has a specific image of their mind of what this means. For many, it may mean long nights and lots of caffeine. For many, it may not be very stressful because they studied well in the past. For many, it can be a time of ignoring the many tests which you have hanging over you, and instead spending time with your friends. This was me far more times than I care to admit. But the question underlying all of this is how to study. How do I, as a student, study for my tests? Now, every student has to answer this for themselves, or they have answered it for themselves. But I argue that the best way to find the answer for yourself is through the lens of virtue. Now, I am someone who wants to minor in philosophy, specifically ethics, so of course I'm going to go with virtue. But many influential writers of the past, such as the famous Greek philosopher Aristotle, believes that virtue is the way to living a good life, and any student wants finals week to be better and happier than otherwise. Then, so if you have a happy and good finals week, then you know you have had a successful finals week. Now, the two virtues which I think are most relevant to this are the virtue of joyfulness and the virtue of preparedness. Now, I will be looking at three main types of studying put forth by Göteborg's University Psychological Study and measuring them along these forms of virtue. Now, the first type of studying which this university lays out is the type of studying which they call here we go. It's a type of studying which they call surface learning. Essentially, a student who attempts to surface learn, what they do is they try to find key words and ideas of what they think the professor's going to quiz them on. And you look through the readings, you look through the notes, you see what this professor spent a lot of time on, and you're like, okay, they're probably going to talk about that. I'm going to memorize these words, these ideas, and if I do that, I should be able to squeeze through. Now, is this virtuous? In the virtue of joyfulness, as Christians, this is a very important virtue to us because the Apostle Paul says to be content in all things. With regards to this virtue, it is not particularly a very virtuous goal. In fact, we are not treating it as something to be content in. We are treating it as something that we just have to get through. We are treating studying as something which we just have to get through and ignore and just get past it because we can't enjoy it. Now, that is not a virtuous way to go about it at all. And also, with regards to the other virtue, preparedness, I do not believe that this leaves us very prepared at all because you are guessing, you're stabbing in the dark, trying to see what you might possibly get it, you might possibly not. So, with regards to these virtues, I do not think that it's called surface level learning, is relevant or useful at all. It is not virtuous and you will not end up happy. So when you're in finals week, please do not resort to surface learning. Now, the next type of learning is a bit of a medium between the two. It is called strategic learning. And essentially what it is it's a two-step process. First, you have to know what the professor is thinking about, what they're like and what they are likely to quiz you on. And second, you tailor what you are learning to the professor's grading style. For instance, if you have a professor which very much likes storytelling, then you learn the specific story aspects because you think the professor will ask that on a test. Now, with regards to virtuous, I believe that this is more virtuous than merely surface learning because you are actually becoming more prepared. That is a benefit. However, it is not seeking out the joy and the contentment and the happiness in your learning. You are instead just being like, I just need to ace this, just for the purpose of acing this. And thus, it is virtuous in one of these aspects, but it is not virtuous in the other. Now, The third aspect is called deep learning, and I believe that this is the most virtuous out of all of them. Now, this deep learning has a bit of a different learning objective than the other two. For both of the first two, the goal was to pass the professor's test or to pass the professor's class, whereas a deep learner truly loves the subject area which they're exploring and they desire to learn more about it. Now, why is deep learning best? Because you go over it, because you try to make connections and integrate it further into your brain chemistry. You will be creating the learning paths, which, first of all, will leave you more prepared than you would in the other two, but second of all, you leave it having enjoyed the stuff that you are learning, which means that you will leave that class with more knowledge than you would otherwise. You leave that class with a lot more knowledge and a lot deeper of an understanding of it. Now, for these reasons, I believe that out of these three different characteristics, the deep learning is the most virtuous. So, when we come around to finals week, this will happen in about 9 months for me. When we come around to finals week and they have all these huge tests looming over me, you won't find me memorizing terms and ideas. You won't find me looking over notes of what the professor likes and being like, ooh, the professor's going to ask about this. You will find me reading the primary sources. You will find me enjoying the amazing stuff which the professor has taught us and not having the grade be my ultimate goal. Thank you very much for your time. This video is about 7 minutes long, and I very much appreciate you having listened to all of it. Thank you.